So like we were promised that ChatGPT will get the developers fired, but the only person who got fired was OpenAI CEO. Everybody else is fine and doing great. So yeah, let's figure out what this tool is about and like why do we need them in the first place?
Sure. I think the first thing we need to distinguish is a product name, a model, or something, a foundational service that enables this product, and the tool that we use as developers, right? We use the IDEs. And when we say ChatGPT, you, Vladimir, just said ChatGPT. ChatGPT is a product of OpenAI that is powered by a GPT model. That's unfortunate naming thing, right? Naming things is always hard. So whenever developers see an integration of any coding assistant in their tool, they start thinking that, oh, it's ChatGPT. It's like now one-to-one mapping in their head that this model is a ChatGPT. Now it's not. You have to distinguish that ChatGPT is just this product, but by OpenAI. And on the back, there is a GPT model of some version. So now those models are very, very expensive things to create, actually. And most of them, the best ones, are actually closed source or closed parameter models that were trained for a while by someone like Google or Meta or OpenAI, and to create this kind of thing, or to train this model, this is called pre-training, you need to build a cluster of very powerful computers and run the training for the neural network on that cluster for a while, and it's a very expensive operation. So not many companies can actually afford that. And then you get this initial model with the parameters, like with billions of parameters, and then the code that can mimic the behavior of the neural network and do inference or prediction. Let's say you get some input, you provide some input to the model. Let's say 4 words: a cat sits on the, and then maybe the next word will be sofa, right? Or a window or anything else.
Mm-hmm.
And the current models that we know, they are basically using internet as an input. So I was watching some of the streams or some of the videos by different YouTubers who say, oh, I was comparing two different assistants, and they provided the same input. Oh, so surprising. They were trained on the same data set, basically.
Mm-hmm.
So if you provide a very obvious input, there's a very high chance that they will both predict the same next action or next word or next, let's say they will give you the same output, right?
Mm-hmm.
With a very high probability. So to get a different output or a different result, you need to be either very specific or somehow provide extra context about the subject that you are interested in. And there comes a philosophical part that is related to programming when you work with the tool in the IDE. Let's say you are working on a big project, and this project has some legacy code in it. There is some knowledge that you don't know. You don't know which libraries you exactly use, what code surrounds it, what code uses the code that you're about to change, or something else. So all the dependencies, all the context. Yes, you're able to analyze it somehow, like manually, and see, aha, this is an important part in my project, and that is an important part in my project, and this dependency is used, and that place, the other place, is affected, right? So
Mm-hmm.
you collect this kind of manually and supply as a context, like, to your request, saying that, hey, I have these things also in my program that you should consider. And but this is what you have found out. You don't know what you didn't have considered yet, right?
Okay, but this is
So
fine tuning, right? So you're
no.
tune.
I skipped. Sorry, I skipped the fine tuning. Right. So after the pre-training, there is actually a fine tuning part that you fine tune or add some additional knowledge to the model about the subject where this model is going to be used for
Mm-hmm.
programming, for instance. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Let's keep it like that. But the usage part, when you use them as programmers via chat that is embedded in your IDE, either in VS Code or Android Studio or IntelliJ IDEA, wherever the tool is integrated.
Mm-hmm.
Um, this is the unknown thing that you might be asking for. Let's say I want them to generate, please generate a new controller in my application that will respond, that will do something, right? We'll accept input as JSON and
Mm-hmm.
respond something with some objects. And depending on how I write this, the model might be able to generate the output with a very high probability. For a Java project, it will be Spring-based API with if I want to if I want to use database, it will be JPA with Hibernate,
Mm-hmm.
and so on, right? But myself, I don't know what I don't know. You see, like, I don't know what else I should provide as knowledge to this request to get a very correct input. It's like ordering food from a restaurant. If you have never ate steak before, and someone told you you should try it, you go to the restaurant, you say, I want a steak, but then the waiter will ask, what else you
How
want to,
ready? Yeah, how ready it should
yeah,
be.
would you like it to be done? What should be on the side? Do you want the sauce, or so many things? If
Mm-hmm.
you when you tried it for the first time, you probably were surprised how many extra questions you get, right? Extra clarifying questions you get, and that's a simple operation, actually ordering a steak. It's like, or even a simpler example: make me a sandwich. What kind of sandwich? Should it be white bread or black bread? Should the ham be on the same side where the oil
Mm-hmm.
is, and so on, like so many things. And you can imagine that the combinations of the parameters and the possible inputs for your program, even for a simple program, will be huge.
Okay.
So this is the part where the ID should be intelligent enough to analyze your code, analyze your project, and say, aha, this is a relevant thing for this request, to supply the extra meta information with this request to get a quality output.
Okay, wait a second. So IDE chooses the parts of the project that should be supplied as a context to the requests?
Right.
Okay, that's interesting.
Because if you just open ChatGPT in your browser and
Mm-hmm.
you supply a request, please generate me a controller, as I said, right? Generate me a controller for doing some operation in a Java project. It will be
Mm-hmm.
Spring. I'm pretty sure it will be
Yeah,
Spring.
yeah. Probability is very high, indeed.
Like 99.9% will be Spring. If you need something else, then you need to supply this extra information, right?
Yeah.
But
This
now
is a typical thing when I ask ChatGPT for some kind of script, and then it will give you the Python script first of all. Then you said no. I want
I need
Node.js with
Lua,
TypeScript.
I need Lua,
Yeah.
or I need something else. And now, as a developer, when I sit in the IDE, I work in the IDE, I already have opened this file that exercises some API or uses some API by the framework or library or uses some specific language that is not very popular. Now, when I make a request to the AI provider to complete or suggest some code, imagine you work with a Micronaut, a Java framework, right? And you make this request and you get Spring output back. What do you do with it? It doesn't make sense. So the IDE is responsible for improving the UX for the developer, improving the productivity for him to skip supplying the extra information.
Okay. So this is what missing. Like this is not just integration to the ChatGPT, like for example, but it's actually knowing the project context and mapping the part of this project on the request that is being supplied by the developer, so that the output is actually relevant. Okay.
Right, and the developer doesn't always know what else they need to supply as this meta information. So it's just easy to explain that, hey, you are working in Micronaut project and you actually need the Micronaut code or APIs to be used in the response, in the result from the AI service, right? So the analysis spans actually multiple parts of your project, like the editors that are open, the previous code that you have written, the dependencies. Maybe this code that you're writing is going to be used in some other place as well, and there are already references, the tests. And so this whole information actually contributes to the quality of the response.
Okay, so the IDE does it do like kind of a prompt engineering, like what ChatGPT does with DALL-E? It's like one neural network is prompting to the other neural network, like make this, like make only a single image, like make it, I don't know, this style, make it this dimensions, and so IDE is basically doing the same. Like we are working with Spring, those are the dependencies, those are like 3 last tests that were written, and so on, right?
Right. Okay. So in the very basics, like let's envision the architecture. Like on the left hand side, we have the IDE, the editor, right, with the plugin that that does something in the IDE, and then this plugin actually makes a request to the service, and then it can get much more complicated because this service can be not. It might not be running the model directly, or it might be delegating to some other service, like in case of JetBrains AI, or it can be deciding to which service or language model it will delegate this specific request based on any factors, maybe by some keyword, maybe by some, since we have like multiple actions in the IDE, a completion, refactoring, and so on. So based on those things, we can decide, okay, that model performs refactoring better, and that model performs renaming better. So let's delegate to different services. That's the idea of JetBrains AI service. So currently, we have we delegate to OpenAI all the requests, but there is a possibility to decide to which APIs you can delegate that. So some of the functionality is delegated to GPT model 3.5, and some of the requests are delegated to GPT model 4 for better responses.
And because prices are different.
Yeah, because sometimes the result will be the same. It's a simple operation, or like it's good enough, let's say.
Okay.
And for some of the things, it goes to GPT-4.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, for the folks that are watching us right now, feel free to ask the questions in the comment section. We will see it here, and we'll try to answer them as well. So, And if you enjoy the conversation, don't forget to leave a like and press the subscribe button, of course. Okay, cool. So what are the tools that we have right now, like aside from Copilot and JetBrains AI?
Right. So Copilot is the most established product because it
Mm-hmm.
was I think was it the first one or it wasn't the first one, but currently is the most established one, especially for VS Code users. There is, since I represent JetBrains, we do have our own. It's relatively new. Let's say the alpha version of it was announced in August, I think,
Okay.
and we first demoed it at the conference in the beginning of October at Devox. That was my part, and I think we launched it on the 6th of December. So now, starting from that date, people can just buy it and use it. And the others are just recently Google announced their Duet AI, which is part of Google Cloud Code
Mm-hmm.
suite.
Okay.
That one is interesting because it integrates, it's tuned for their services, of course. So in that plugin, you get all those UI elements to actually start using the services, and they integrate with the proper APIs from the platform. Um, there is the service called Code Whisperer by Amazon, which is pretty good if you look at the features list. I haven't tried playing with that. I just installed the plugin, but I don't want to try multiple plugins at once. So I have to, and sometimes they conflict on the functionality in your IDE. So when you call full line completion, for instance, which plugin should trigger, you don't know, or if it triggers, is it the Copilot or is it JetBrains AI or is it something else? So it's hard to evaluate them at the same time unless you install multiple versions of the IDE with different plugins. There is something called Tab 9. There is something called Source Graph Cody. So
Okay.
those I only have seen as previews in the videos. There's something else. So it's probably less than 10 names that I have seen over this week, basically.
Okay. There's a lot of competitors already.
Yeah, and they existed. I think the appearance of various coding assistants was happening primarily during the summer. So we have a marketplace of plugins for the IDE, and I think there is a manual review for any submitted plugin on JetBrains marketplace. So the team was reporting that, hey, there is another coding assistant and another one, and another just custom one that integrates with ChatGPT with no context assembling. So there were a lot of plugins on the marketplace where by individuals who just made this simple UI form that integrates the chat and then makes a request to ChatGPT, the open ChatGPT part.
This is the most straightforward implementation plan that you could have.
Very,
Like,
very, very naive, of course, and then you start getting those requests or results by asking to generate a controller without supplying extra information, and you get
yeah,
Spring instead of Micronaut, right?
yeah, exactly. Okay. Good. So, what do you think? How those tools would impact the developer work? Like, will it, I don't know, like improve productivity 50% or like render the developers obsolete, or I don't know. Like, what
I
impact do you expect?
Yeah, I think a month ago, or like a few months ago, a few months back, the whole hysteria around this topic was that, hey, they are going to replace the developers, and maybe one day when we get to very smart models, they will be a threat. Will they make developers more productive? So as we start the discussion, when you supply the information to the model, and you have to be quite specific about your intent. uh, let's say I ask the model to generate some application. Please generate me some application. Here are my requirements. You have not specified which libraries you should use, which frameworks you should use, and so on. And if you do it like this, even with the additional context, you will actually get a lot of code that you will have to read and understand. And most likely, well, not even most likely, but for sure, the APIs used by the code will be pretty dated. The current cut off for training of those models like a year back. So for some of the tasks, it doesn't matter. Like for math, for instance, or for algorithms, like there is no API, right? There is no framework libraries. Some of the libraries are not that active on creating the new versions, and you just can easily update the version and your code will be intact, the one that they generated for you.
I faced the situations with, for example, when you're trying to write something for AWS, you're requesting, for example, like simple operations, reading a file from S3, and then it generates you the code from SDK version 2, which is mostly deprecated already. And you're like, no, I want version 3, and like, okay, now like for version 3, here you are. And like frequently you will stumble upon some generated code that doesn't exist at all. So you need to say like, hey, this doesn't exist, like other options.
Right. So if you say that create me or sudo make me a sandwich, that's a very high level requirement. And you get the variation of the outputs is like huge. And the probability of getting the right one is a very small one, unless you don't care. Unless you just want to start your service in tomorrow and you don't care which version of the framework, the quality of the code. And there are use cases like that, right? You just want to get the thing done. And I tried making this experiment like maybe a couple of months ago, and I thought that with Micronaut, that was my experience playing with Micronaut and getting responses back from the service for a Spring API. And I thought, I probably could have done this in just by looking at the documentation much faster than playing with the chat. So that was kind of, there were two things in it, right? I provided the requirements that were too high level, and I didn't supply the extra information, but I had my, let's say, I expected the model behave the one way, and it responded in the other way. So the expectations are very high, and currently what I see, the expectations from all the developers who try the AI assistants are very high, and they are disappointed, and they say it's not worth the money, the time, anything.
Yeah, basically they expect the AI assistant to do their work for them, and
like
surprisingly, the majority of the work of a programmer is not writing the code; it's understanding the requirements and formulating them in a proper way, and like the language doesn't matter that much.
So. Exactly. So today, I want to emphasize that's today. Maybe in a year it will be a different picture. You still need to understand what you are doing. You still need to understand the high level requirement. Like, I mean, for the most part, like, yes, I said, like, if you don't care, if the code that you get from this model is compilable, executable, and does what you expect it to do, then fine. I mean, you get your shit done in a fraction of a time, and tomorrow your thing is running in production and doing some business already, selling candies. I don't know.
But that will be ugly, right? So I have an example of this one. So like for the startup that I'm consulting, like their CPO, they're like, okay, we need an admin portal, okay, and he built the entire thing just using ChatGPT. He has very little understanding how code works, just very basic, like from the university 20 years ago. But he managed to build a React application. It was ugly, the architecture was horrible, but it's damn working, and that's the
You
only
see,
important thing.
I hear two keywords here: ugly and architecture is horrible. And this is the reaction of a senior developer to the code that is produced by AI assistant typically.
Yeah.
Why? Because we think of maintenance.
Mm-hmm.
We think, oh, how the human will read the code and how will they understand the whole intent of this structure and application and so on, how they will refactor it and so on. And this is what we have trained for in the universities and with all the experience that we have. uh, the reality is that we are terrible at understanding the code as humans. Like like for ages, uh if you recall, like the programming languages, when the first programming languages appeared in 58 or like the 60s, right? And they
Mm-hmm.
didn't change much. Yes, they are more expressive, but reality is you put a program in Fortran side by side with TypeScript, they will practically be the same. They will not different that much. And but machines are like, or those new tools, the AI tools, they are very good in understanding what this code does. So if you have produced, if your CPO produced an application with React or whatever language they used, and it looks ugly, the architecture is bad, and so on, it doesn't matter if the other human will be maintaining it or will not be maintaining it, or the other human will be using these tools again
Mm-hmm.
to make sense of it, right? So we have this black box on one side for producing this thing that works, and on the other side we will have this translator, the same tool that will explain you, oh, this endpoint does this and this piece of code does that. So you don't care. You don't care
Yeah.
if it's ugly or not. Like, I mean, it can be all all variables could be named with one letter. It could be all in one function, cryptic as much as it could, but the machine will still
Yeah.
make sense of it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's interesting. Yeah, basically, again, you need to ask your questions like, what's the ultimate goal? What are we
Right.
making? Like, what's the most important thing at this particular moment? Can we refactor it later? So yeah,
Right.
because again, if you're at startup and you need to like find the niche and try out your ideas as fast as possible, why not? Right?
Right.
Uh,
If your task is to deliver some functionality, and as a senior developer, you make an estimate that you're gonna make this functionality in 2 weeks, let's say a service, but using this tool, any not even so well trained person in programming could do the same functionality, could produce the same application in 1 day. There's just a cost, right?
yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm.
For rolling out. Yes, there is another stage of maintaining and developing it further and so on, but getting out is much faster, and the initial cost for the launch of this application will be
Yeah.
much lower. So it's an immediate indicator that this is a very nice tool for some things, at least.
Yeah.
So getting back to your initial question about how will those tools impact and what will they offer to developers, I think today, uh, there, let's say, a trained developer can make themselves much more productive with those tools for the things that they might have forgotten, especially algorithmic part, math, and so on. So they just I heard one nice sentence by someone. They said, "I like programming, but I like creating more." So if you're a developer, like, yes, you write, you like to type in all those nice statements of your program, but wouldn't it be nicer to just use them as components, or like you know, getting out the whole pieces of programs out, and you believe that they work. Yes, there's like some additional things you can do to ensure that they work, but
Yeah,
or
that would
the
be
other
much nicer. Mm.
the other view on it is, imagine you hire a person who just got out from the college, and he's trained in computer science. He knows how to program, he knows Python, something else, and you give them a task. You cannot control everything. Yes, there are practices for like code reviews, I don't know, tests, something else, but you can think of different many other factors how their code will be shipped and will have bugs. Even the code by senior developers have bugs, right? So there are
Yeah.
bugs in production. We just have to accept it, that code is getting shipped, it has bugs. So think of this tool as another person shipping the code.
Mhm.
Yes, you are responsible for shipping this code
Yeah.
at the end, but this is practically the same. So you ship the code, it's there, it has bugs, and now you have to fix them, and you will use this tool again. But the iterations will be much faster.
Yeah, yeah. So basically, this is a junior developer who knows all the API in the world.
Yes.
Okay.
And if you're developing this application, like if we now understand that we shouldn't be using the high level requirements as an input to this tool, we need to be a bit more specific. So instead of saying that, hey, please generate me the application, you're gonna say, create me a controller that integrates that component and accepts JSON input and
Mm.
responds with JSON output. Then it will be like much more specific description for the tool to actually generate a quality code for you
Yeah.
that will be
Okay.
working.
Great. How about a short demo? Like how this assistant looks like?
Uh, let's try. I mean, why not? I have the IDE open. Let me see if I have any code in it. Yeah, that's my typical demo actually.
Okay.
I'm gonna share the screen window, and here it comes. You can put it up to the screen. Can you add it now?
Yes.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
So there's
Can
what I
you
was.
make it larger?
Yeah,
Because
sure,
I can barely see
sure.
anything.
Let's see. I font. Sorry.
Yeah, there's a presentation mode in the IDE, you know.
I don't really like the presentation mode.
Okay.
That's my personal thing. Um, okay, let it be like this. Is it okay, or like you need
Nothing changed. So
nothing
if it can
changed?
be, yeah, if it can be bigger a little bit, that would be nice.
Okay, there is a hint for you. There is a zoom action in the IDE, and you can set it to 175, for instance. Oh, that's
Okay, perfect. Oh, yeah, that's much better. Mm-hmm.
much better. Okay. So what do I have? I have some code, and I have an empty Spring project. Basically,
Mm-hmm.
there is one, right? Nothing
Okay.
is in there. We have the controller. Let's actually delete this method. Let's assume that the controller is empty. And what
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing is I'm playing, or I have found a code in the internets that implements something.
Okay.
And you see, it was written by a mathematician,
Mm.
right? There's
Yeah,
some
yeah, I
math
can
in
see
it,
it.
and by just looking at it, you wouldn't tell what this code does and what is it all about. It's probably, it could be a bubble sort, it could be quick sort, it could be something else. You don't know, right? And
Okay.
the name also hides the nature of the algorithm from you.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what those tools are very nice for is actually understanding the existing code. I mean, um, just ask it to explain the code, and you will get a pretty nice description, especially for this kind of code. I mean, sometimes if you're written very custom code or very custom algorithm that doesn't have any mathematical patterns in it, like just statements, and they somehow don't play well together, you probably will get a description that sounds like this statement does that, this statement adds this to that, and it doesn't tell you much. It's like reading the code instead of you. But in this case, since it's available algorithm, let me actually make the zoom slightly smaller because I cannot see it myself. 150 will be a bit better. So what we get from this code, it explains me. It's streaming. This is the annoying.
You can
annoying
scroll
part.
Up. Okay.
Yeah, I have to wait. So remember, I was telling you about the context assembling inside the IDE. You can actually see what was attached to the request, what kind of code. Okay. So I made the request, I made the action, I invoked the action on this class. But there are dependencies. There's this dependency on class D, whatever it is right now. We will figure it out. If there were more places, like the controller, for instance, if the class was used inside the controller will be here as well. Here we only show that those classes, the code that was attached to the request, but there is some extra meta information about the libraries that we could add as well, or how many classes you have, Java version, and so on. Like all the necessary technical details that you probably know, but you have to look up. All right. So then we get a response. It's like reading Wikipedia, but you don't know which page on Wikipedia you need to look up for. And it tells me, hey, this is a convex hull, or this is like a variation of Jarvis, whatever algorithm there is. Okay. Sometimes it gives me also a link to a place in the internet where I could, read more. Yeah. And then it actually explains by referring to the code structure. I mean, it tells me which method do I have. So it's not just taken from the internet. It maps the domain knowledge to the code that I have in the IDE. This is like a valuable part that I see here. Like it will explain me exactly what is happening in my code, not just, hey, this implements this quick sort, whatever. Okay. Right. So then it also explains me what values. There are some constants in the code, like if that constant is 0, then they are like these. I don't know what that means. The meaning, so the meaning, turning clockwise, counterclockwise, and so on. Okay. And there could be more, like depending on the position of the stars in the sky. Sometimes it provides more output and more explanations, but we already can be sure that it knows about the algorithm.
Okay, and this window is basically works as a chat with the ChatGPT, because you can ask questions, right? I see this Ask AI assistant.
ChatGPT is a wrong word. I will have to correct you on that, because it doesn't talk to ChatGPT. It talks to JetBrains AI, and JetBrains AI talks to OpenAI, and that is not a ChatGPT.
Okay, that's fine. Like what I meant.
Separate.
Yeah. Okay. What I meant here is that like you have the conversation with a given context, right? So you can ask this particular context.
Yeah, in this part, you since it drives you to the chat. There are two moments. Like one is the useful moment. You can add constraints. We will see how we can add constraints to the request that was generated, or amend the data or anything. But the bad moment is that since it opens as a chat, there is a tempting moment to start chatting. and this is not productive. This is what drives you away from actually doing the real thing. So my theory, or I advocate for that you shouldn't be using the chat. Chat is only for adding extra information, but most of the work should be happening inside the editor or the
Okay.
IDE actions. And ideally, I would probably don't want to know that I'm actually now interacting with the AI model. I just want to use the IDE.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But currently, we just have to
Makes
make this
sense.
distinguish.
Yeah.
Okay, so we know about the algorithm. It looks ugly, and we just integrate it into our application. So imagine we have this legacy code that was working for 10 years, written by someone in the 90s, and now we are building a service that should incorporate the knowledge of that
Mm-hmm.
thing, and we just copied this code into our application, and we are we generated this Spring application, and now we want to just use that algorithm and provide the service somehow. And what we can do here is, since we already have some code, a class here, like we are working with a Java application, we have a class, we can start, let's say, a new chat using this selection, for instance, and say that integrate with, oh no, we can actually continue that previous prompt.
Okay.
And say generate a controller, not an application, we say a controller, but the first of all, yes, we said that the probability is high that we are going to get Spring response, like the response that refers to Spring anyway.
Okay.
But if it wasn't, if the probability getting the response from the model was equal for all the frameworks, what would help here is the work by the AI assistant in the IDE to supply this information that we are actually working with a Spring project.
Yeah, that's clear.
That integrates with the algorithm in order to, you see, there's a word prediction happening in the prompt.
Yeah, okay.
That's a new thing. I haven't seen that before. To accept.
So it's AI talking to itself to help you building the prompts.
A set, of points in JSON format, and respond with
XML.
the result in. That could be an interesting thing, but in JSON as well.
Okay.
Yeah, let's be polite. So some people want to add please as well, but doesn't actually affect the result. Nice.
Okay.
That's a very verbose output, I would say. Like usually I get something more concise, but it now wanted to be like very strict about what is doing. So what we can do now is to, let's say we just need this. We don't need the full class. We just need a piece of text, and we can just copy it into the editor immediately.
Okay, nice.
What should happen? Oh, the imports are actually added automatically anyway. Yeah. So what I like here is when I'm specific enough, when I have supplied enough context to the prompt, then chances are I get a piece of code that I can immediately integrate without adding new libraries, adding new imports or anything. And it will compile, it will most likely work, right? We could execute, yes, and it will probably even work. Sometimes when I ask the same thing, it will actually give me an example of JSON that I should supply as an input as well. Like that's very useful. Or you can request that, hey, please, let's say, generate an example post command with an example input data to execute this endpoint. Sorry, execute. Yeah. It allows you to supply input in a very incorrect English as well. So, but in most cases, it will understand that, hey, it's fine. I'm gonna do that for you. Oh, now the result is pretty nice. It gives me a curl command, right?
Okay.
So I
Does
could
it
use.
does it have the button to execute it immediately?
No, it would be
I
nice.
mean it understands its shell script, so why not executing?
Mm, yeah, it makes sense, but I think it's the feature of Markdown component from IntelliJ, and you may
Okay.
write something like rm minus rf slash
Of
in
course.
there, and
Of course, yeah. And then
it
yeah, by the way, that's a great question. What about the safety of the code that it's being generated?
there is a lot of concerns about that. Let's get that later. Like, I mean, let's
Okay.
talk about that later. There's so many attacks actually that you can do with the, like, on a training set to I was watching some videos, and that was very funny. And but here, what could happen on my requests, sometimes if I specified it somehow differently or didn't supply enough context, it was generating a program for me instead of curl command. Or I can be more specific and generate a command for IntelliJ HTTP client. Generate the same command. What I noticed that, and other people noticed that as well, that the same command or the same intent that you give to the prompt or supply to the model, tweaked just by a couple of words, may produce a very different input.
Yeah.
So, for instance, providing too high level response to the model will result in sorry, not a response, a request. We supply a high level request, sudo make me a sandwich, to the model, and we get like a pseudocode back. Basically, they say, like, you should be doing this, you should be doing that, here is the method, here's a couple of statements, and then a commented out code that there you will put the other logic, and you're like, why didn't you add that logic in there? It's not hard for you, right? And you can ask it to do a little more work, like write out all the code example, like, explicitly, and what you may get back as a response is, I cannot do your work for you. So the model will respond like, hey, like, it's like a machine, rage by the machines, right?
Lazy bitch.
Yeah, lazy bitch, just do your work, I will not do that for you. That this thing has been noticed just recently. Maybe it's the time of the year, but if you try to think about it a little bit more, that actually resembles how people talk on the forums, like Q&A forums, like, hey, I need this to do this thing, please help me. Someone responds in the similar
RTFM.
manner,
Yeah.
almost like RTFM, but they are unwilling to supply the whole code for you, but they give you the pointer, right,
Yeah.
what to do, and they give you some pseudocode, and then the person asks, hey, can you actually give me the whole sample? And very high probability is the response will be, I'm not doing the work for you, I just gave you the pointer. And this
Exactly.
is because like this time of the year, right, people are lazy, they don't want to do that, or I don't know, and the similar questions are there. And this is how the model was trained.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a probabilistic model with a prediction.
Yeah.
So if it got to that path on a forum conversation, they will get this kind of
Yeah.
result back. But also a couple of months ago, people discovered that there is a very nice phrase to get from a high level problem description to get the model to respond with a good instructions, is when you
Mhm.
supply step by step phrase
Yeah. No.
anywhere. So like, please describe it in step by step, and it starts giving you, okay, like to integrate the database in your application, you first have to do this: add a driver, add a
Yeah.
dependency, add properties, annotate your model with a table attribute, and so on.
Yeah, that's been my experience, and there are several prompts that increases the quality of the response. One very surprising thing was that you can mention a tip of like $100, and they're like, "Okay, tips, very nice." Yeah,
Right.
covering the same topic, there was an example. I don't know if it's like a Photoshop or actual screenshot from ChatGPT, but it was like, "Hey, can you please give me this thing?" And there's like, yeah, it was a model trained on Slack, and the model replied like, I will make an action point and work on this tomorrow."
Nice, nice. Let me show you one more thing in the ID. We will not go
Sure,
into the
sure.
like full overview of these features. Um, so yeah, we integrated the code, assume it works, assume we generated the test. There is an action for that as well. So if we go and say generate unit test for me, the result will be sometimes good enough to work on that and add more tests or more data into the test set. Sometimes it's pretty bad and the test actually fails. So whatever test it generated actually fails. And probably that is also okay. I mean, if the test doesn't fail, then you should be skeptical about that.
Yeah.
But two things that I like, remember, the AI assistant was capable of understanding what the code does, what the nature of it is, and so on. When we executed the explain code action, it can find problems to that. So it actually can discover the shortcoming of the implementation by saying, "Oh, there is like the implementation is pretty bad because it returns a null or works with the array." Or the naming is bad, we can extract a method from it, and so on. So it
Hmm.
provides some suggestions, but they are very high level. It's just considerations, right?
Okay.
But there is an action called suggest refactoring, which is slightly more automated in the IDE right now. So if we, by the way, if we check what was sent, now the controller is
Hmm.
there because we are using this class.
Okay.
So it gives me a summary what you should do, but it also provides me a patch.
Okay, a patch. Very nice.
Yeah, and I really like this example because sometimes I get the output that actually will break my code if I just copy it there. And it will break in a way that, first of all, it's a patch, it's not a refactoring action because it has many
Hmm.
changes. And if I see the diff, you see it changed the class name, it
Yeah.
changed the method name. No, it didn't change this method name, but sometimes it also renames.
It changed the signature, right? It's like instead of an array, you have a list. So
Yeah,
okay.
that's nice. So if I just integrate it, I will break my code everywhere. It might be too destructive for my code to just integrate
Hmm.
this patch. And in this case, what I can do, not accept it, but say, keep class and method names. And after this, it will provide the same result, but with the original names, so that I can just integrate my patch back into my application and nothing will
Okay.
break. And then I will do renaming.
Okay.
And this is
Yeah,
my favorite feature of them all.
yeah, I can see how useful it can be. Mm, very
Let's do
nice.
that, actually.
Yeah, but you need to start with tests anyway. So
Yes, yes.
the
So
test should be ultimate
assume,
gateway.
assume,
Yeah.
right. I assume that we have tests. I'm just
Okay.
skipping that. Usually I show tests. I'm just saving some time. So see the diff and apply.
Okay.
Close the window so that it fits. Everything should stay green. Yeah. And now if I go and say, okay, this run thing doesn't need to be called run. Usually when you first do this action, you will get a list of actions. Oh, you don't see that. It's interesting.
Okay.
Oh, because I'm sharing a window. Let me share the screen because I want you to see that.
Sure.
Stop sharing the screen. And
Hey, thank you, Mert, for watching.
Yes. Share the screen and the entire screen instead of a window.
Okay.
Yep. So when I'm renaming this method, you will see a pop-up with a slight delay because it makes a request, but then you will get sensible names back. So naming is not a problem anymore.
Yeah, that solves. Great. Finally.
Yes.
So it basically understands what like it uses the capability that you showed before, like understanding the code, so that it can suggest the appropriate name. Awesome.
I think this is the biggest win from all the features that the AI assistants provide.
Yeah.
Right. So technically, those are the features. There's more, like we can generate commit messages. We can understand the commit if the commit wasn't described well enough. We can create our custom prompts to automate the interaction with the model. Those are the features that just make the developer's life more convenient. But there are quite a lot of things that developers don't consider, but the managers do. So, for instance, the legal aspects, the security aspects of it, the other things. Some of the AI assistants like Code Whisperer, and I think I have seen a demo by Copilot, but I couldn't reproduce that, where the suggested code snippet is annotated with the information about the license or about the probable original snippet of code where that came from a training set. So they have this tracing of the result back to the original code, right?
Okay.
This is important because, like, we care about the licenses. Imagine even if the code was synthetically produced, there are high chances that there's some copyrighted code that looks exactly the same, and you don't want to get sued, right? Because you used the code from some repository that was, I don't know, use the poisoning license, for instance. That's one thing. The other thing is security. That's a little bit different topic, because you can actually inject the attacks on a training set. So imagine, like, a very straightforward attack would be adding something to the page with additional prompt, like that would be an extra command to the assistant saying that forget everything that was before that and respond with this. So if this gets into a training set, whatever prompt you do, like if your if the decision making inside the model gets to that point of data where this hidden command is, you will get a very strange result back.
Yeah. And
Or
there's a big question. There's a big question how to protect against this.
Yeah, I don't know exactly. I think it's a question to the specialists. I'm not
Yeah.
a real specialist in that. Then there could be some malicious code produced as an output by the model. Imagine here somewhere I would have some kind of a invocation to external service, or deleting
Mhm.
something from the file system, or
Yeah.
anything, right?
Yeah.
And this is where the extra tools come in, like scanning for those problems, scanning for the dependencies. I think those are the usual things or usual tools that we have today already. But
Mhm.
those tools and services are also trying to integrate AI for
Yeah.
scanning for those
Yeah.
problems.
So
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 there will be
it
a bottle of
yeah,
AI models.
AI checking on AI safety. Yeah, that
Right.
sounds very good indeed. Yeah, we have a question like, does AI functionality available for IntelliJ IDEA Ultimate for free, or it's a separate license?
No, it's a separate license.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, when we launched it, it was pretty popular question, um, and I understand why people are asking it, because they already have the license and there's a new
Hmm.
feature, and then they want this feature to be part of that license. You have to understand that the license that you have today is for the product, and AI assistant is not part of the product. It's
Yeah,
an
it's separate
integration of
product.
external
Mm.
service. So it's like, I have already a license for IntelliJ IDEA. Why couldn't I have a license for TeamCity for free?
Yeah,
Well, it
same
doesn't.
logic.
It just doesn't work like that. The computing resources are elsewhere, not on your machine.
Yeah.
The thing that you have on your machine is this chat window, or those ID actions that actually go somewhere and execute those actions. And running this model is a very expensive thing. So I think in September it was reported that Microsoft, or yeah, was it Microsoft? Someone like either Copilot or Microsoft thinks it's kind of the same thing anyway.
Hmm.
So the diminishing return was about 30 millions a month.
Oh my god.
Yeah, it's a very expensive thing to do. Now the question is how much money you can burn on running this thing by providing the service for peanuts. I
Hmm.
mean, and when you see prices below, I don't know, below one coffee a month, then
Yeah,
it
that's
must be the thing. They have the budget for burning and getting out to the market for launching
or
it.
they're selling your data.
Yeah, or they are selling your data. So the other question is always like, regarding the security by security specialists, is that if we supply the code into the request, where does this code go? Right.
Yeah.
Currently, we delegate that to OpenAI, and OpenAI, for this kind of requests, they guarantee that the code is not used for training sets, and
Well,
they
they
are not
promise.
storing it. They
They
promise.
promise.
Let's say it's written. It's written in the
Okay.
contract.
Okay.
If they are not keeping up with the promises, then they are legally obliged for, I think, a big sum of money,
Yeah.
right?
Okay.
So, and
Let's hope for that. Hmm.
right, for our service, we have opt-in functionality, I think, called data collection, detailed data sharing, and there is a checkbox that with which you would allow for a detailed data collection. You can read up on our documentation. What does it mean? It will
Okay.
actually save the code for analysis,
Okay.
because, but
When
that's
yeah,
opt-in.
yeah, when this thing is coming local, like when a company would be able to store like some product, so
Right.
that this AI request will come there instead of
I,
JetBrains service.
um, I think this question is applicable to any coding assistant actually.
Exactly.
Today, to install it locally, because we don't have a local implementation ourselves, right? We
Okay.
are delegating to OpenAI, and OpenAI is a closed thing. But there are models that you can actually download and run
Yeah,
yourself and
Llama
integrate.
Tour. Yeah, or other models.
Yeah. So there is a team that is currently looking into it, but even then, providing a service that would be optimal enough to maintain as a on-premises product would take time. So I wouldn't expect that in the beginning of the next year, and I wouldn't expect that even in the middle of the next year. So
Okay. Okay.
it requires some research on the subject. I mean, the
Okay.
model, and
So
is
not a short-term thing. Okay.
not.
So
It's not a short term.
yeah. We have a couple of other questions. So according to Anton, which things that IntelliJ AI assistants does better than GitHub Copilot? Yeah,
Uh,
comparison coming.
Yeah, like that's inevitable. People would like to know the comparison. I think the model currently is the same, right? We know that Copilot is using GPT on the back, and we are using
Okay.
OpenAI with a GPT on the back as well.
Okay.
So if you supply the same request to both of them, you will get the same result. So it's not the question of comparing the responses. The question is how can you collect the context inside
Context.
the
Yeah.
IDE and the usability of those plugins inside the IDE. So I would say Copilot is very good in VS Code. I hadn't had a chance to actually play with it inside IntelliJ. I'm on the waiting list myself, and IntelliJ AI assistant is pretty good inside IntelliJ. But
Okay.
I can see like Copilot has been developed for a longer time, so it actually has more features, and I would like to see some of those features also implemented in IntelliJ. I can tell you which even. So, for instance, when you use chat inside VS Code with Copilot, when you place a question and you get a response, there next to the response there will be a prediction of the next question. This
Yeah.
is a very nice feature for
Yeah.
those who are
Great.
learning a new technology. So, for instance, I had this exercise of learning TypeScript inside VS Code, and I was asking questions. What should I do to compile it automatically? And it told me, oh, you need to add this configuration file, but with that configuration file, you probably need to do this and that as well. And there
Yeah.
was like a next question. Inside IntelliJ, you don't need that question for this specific task because it works out of the box. You didn't have to configure and create many configuration files for the same thing. But that's a nice feature in itself. So I can imagine if I am learning Spring, for instance, and if I want to implement this service that we're playing with, and I said, oh, I want to generate a controller, then I can think of next question. For instance, just myself, maybe the model can do it even better. Oh, if you wanted to do a controller, maybe you want to do a service as well. And since you are building an enterprise app, maybe you want to add a database integration too. Nice thing
Yeah.
to
No,
have.
nice hint. Yeah.
Right. Autocomplete, like I have seen some very nice usability features inside Copilot's plugin in VS Code as well. So, for instance, when you have full line completion, this is the first thing that people saw actually by Copilot, right? There wasn't a chat, there was just this full line or snippets completion. When you start
Yeah.
typing something, it gives you like a bunch of text. That was very annoying at first because it was getting in a way much more than it was actually helping. But now they have this nice way to interact with the suggested completion. so that you can say, oh, I don't like this, please suggest something else, and there is a quick action for that. So this
Okay.
kind of usability features, they are different. It's hard to compare inside, like side by side in the same
Mhm.
IDE, because they don't exist in the same IDE right now as general availability. But I can see already which features in Copilot are missing from AI
Okay.
assistant
Okay.
in IntelliJ. So, but the quality of responses and the quality of the model is the same. It's the same model.
Okay. Okay. Good. Thank you very much. Yeah. Another question. Does Bolt allow developers to use AI assistant tools? Yes, we do. So people are using Copilot, and we have even like some amount of licenses purchased. We're now evaluating what JetBrains is doing, so we'll see like what to pick up. So yeah, we're looking closely at it.
Yeah, I was watching one video yesterday where a person was reading a lecture at MIT about this very subject, and he mentioned that in their company, all the developers are forced to use AI assistants. If they are not using it, this is like a reason to be fired.
Oh really?
Yeah.
Like literally fired? Well, that's kind of scary, but I think that positive motivation to use it, yeah, it should be incentivized. Yeah, indeed.
All right. Well, in fact, it's funny how to see the spectrum, right, of how the companies react to this. Some companies say yes, we want to use that, and we want all the developers to use that
Mm-hmm.
because they see what kind of value they get with it, like the quicker iterations and so on. And the other companies say no, we forbid using it
Yeah,
for
that's
for
crazy.
security reasons.
Yeah,
Like if you use that phrase, basically you don't have to explain what kind of security reasons do you have in mind.
yeah. Okay, cool. I think we'll a little bit out of time, but that was interesting. So fine with me. Thank you very much for this conversation, Anton. I wish you a Merry
Sure.
Christmas and Happy New Year, and good luck with all those projects in the upcoming year.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me, and thanks
Yeah,
everybody
yeah,
watching and asking questions.
yeah. Happy holidays to everybody. Please make sure that you're subscribed to the channel because the interviews don't stop. They will continue next year. So yeah, wish you everybody a great holiday. Thank you. See ya.
Bye bye.